let me ask this question right here. Here's a really good question. This is really pertinent, even for myself as well too. What are your thoughts on people seeing anybody else? It could be you, Lexi. It could be you, Michael. Myself. It's one of those things. What are your thoughts on when other people see you trying to make improvements to improve your life, to better your life, and then they judge you prematurely based off you wanting to make improvements within your life? Because I think there's a lot to unpack within that as well too, because I think it takes courage to want to improve, to want to get better, to do those types of things, because there are certain people that are just, they're lazy a little bit, or they don't want to make progress. They want to rely on systems or doctors or hospitals or certain things. And like both of you, you're putting forth that effort to get better, to show people like, hey, I have this, but you know what? I can do something. Like for example, myself, there's a few things that I can't do as well too, but I do exactly what I can. And people will judge you based off of that. But I've discovered that people will judge you based off of their weakness or even their ignorance whenever they don't understand your strength or even your wisdom. So what are your thoughts about that?
You want to go first, or want me to? Well, part of what I'm trying to do is trying to get able-bodied people to change the way they think, perceive, and think about disabled people. And the three ways people approach me is like normal, which is the way I want the people to treat me, or they'll treat me like a damsel in distress who can't do anything. Bothers the hell out of me because it's condescending as hell. And then there's times when I get completely ignored. That's the one that bothers me the most. Because I'll be out with my wife or a friend, and I'll go up to somebody and ask them a question, and they'll listen to me, and then answer to the other person I'm with. The hell. So any kind of judgment bothers me, and you want to change that, even if they're appreciative of what you're trying to do for yourself. The judgment is still bothersome, and it's still like a nagging thing at the back of my head.
And what's a good piece of tactical advice in order to overcome that? So when you find yourself in particular situations, because that takes a little bit of courage as well too, not necessarily to kind of snap back in a sarcastic, like snarky type of a way, but there's definitely some tactical advice on how to overcome those particular situations. That takes courage as well too. So what are your thoughts on that?
I sometimes act not the way I should. I'll say things like, I'll be like, oh, hey, I'm over here, or something to that. The nice way is to just educate. Tell them how you want it. Tell them how you want to be seen. Tell them what you're thinking, so that they can hopefully make better decisions going forward.
That's powerful, man.
Being open is just the most important.
Yeah, that's true. I would like to add to it that there have been two episodes in my life. The episode when I was angry, and the period that I wasn't angry anymore. And nowadays, I'm kind of open to people. I smile a lot. I have fun in my life, and I appreciate just about anything. And people find it inspiring. I mean, when I go high-speed crutch hopping and they see me like, I mean, or they see the
I find that empowering. Just to kind of riff on Michael's one word right there, that's empowerment. That's empowerment right there.
So the thing is that a lot of people, most certainly at the beginning of when I was recovering, didn't understand why I didn't do certain things. And I think that was the hardest part, that I knew, like, if I was going to do certain things, that I would cross certain boundaries, which would lead to me not healing the way I should. And that's a far harder battle to face with people, because strangers are willing to help, and the people who are closest to you most of the time are not. I don't know why. Possibly because they're tired of doing things for you while they're doing things for themselves too. But if you try to explain like, okay, but this doesn't feel good, this doesn't make sense because this, that, and the other, that's very hard. And people have it in their mind that you can do it, but they don't see you do it because you have always done it or others are doing it. That for me was the tricky thing. Like, hey, I need your assistance, I need your support in this, and you don't see it. So being able to do more is just fun. That's basically fun. And I have to admit, I have a lot of laughs when I stand on one foot and I'm throwing this ball to the other one on one foot and then back again, because that's a balance exercise, which is kind of hard to do. Of course, there's a difference between whether I'm doing it with my shoe on or whether I'm doing it on my socks. Are you okay, Terry?
I'm good. Just okay. I'm stretching. Yeah. I actually stand all day long because it hurt. It actually is worse for me to sit down, so I stand all day long. And a couple days ago, I actually went to the chiropractor, so I'm trying to get some things adjusted and back into place a little bit here. And it's the first time I had ever actually went, so my entire back feels different
Yes.
going to the chiropractor.
Yeah, I know that feeling. They realign all my vertebrae like twice a week, so I know the feeling. And it's so funny that when they do it precisely at the place it should be, it's like everything can just all of a sudden relax. That's the most amazing feeling.
Michael, do you have to do anything like that? Do you go to the chiropractor or do anything like any stretching or anything like that?
I work out and do stretching every day. Just for my back is to keep it healthy. Every day I do yoga.
Okay.
With my arms, my shoulders, my back, trying to touch my toes, just to keep me limber, because I know as I get older, it's going to get worse and worse.
What about weightlifting? Do you do that at all?
I have weights under my desk. That way I don't have to go to the gym. I can just do it at the house. Okay,
that's awesome, man.
I do weights Monday through Sunday. Well, Monday through Saturday. Sorry.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's what makes me empowered, I believe, is that makes you stronger mentally and physically. Because it takes you out of it. Doesn't take you out of it, but it helps with depression.
So I love your one word, empowerment, because I believe that there's a lot of ways in which you can empower yourself and empower others. What's the most empowering thing that you do?
For me, weightlifting and just taking care of my wife and dog. Because having that responsibility of making sure they're okay lifts me up.
I love that, man.
Makes me mentally and stronger.
I love that. That's awesome. What about you, Lexy?
Well, for me, it's probably taking that walk outside and, just going for it, sometimes with spray, sometimes without. And if possible, I like to do it. And I go and grab a cappuccino or latte macchiato or just a glass of tea, whatever it is, as some sort of reward. It also gives me the chance to sit down and rest for a sec. As for empowering others, giving people a voice, teaching them to believe in themselves, that they're worthwhile, that they're worth listening to, that they're worth expressing themselves. That's the most empowering thing I can do for other people.
I love that. It's being the example. So I always like to tie things back into leadership. And I truly believe that when and you've heard me say this, when you show up, you can show out. And here's what I mean by that. When you show up, you show out. You show others what's possible by you being possible, by you being the example that others can emulate. And that's why I love that we're talking about courage, because it does take courage to show up. It does take courage to do those difficult things, to do those hard things that other people are like, my goodness, how can you do that? You're so motivated, you're so inspired. But I think that there's different levels of that. And I believe that when you're committed to excellence, when you're committed to a different standard, you're committed to a higher standard, if you will, I truly believe that that also helps you, because you've set the bar higher for yourself. And there's other people that really need that example of what right looks like. And what right looks like for one person might be different for another person.
Yeah,
but someone showing that example of what the possibilities are, they can see that and they're like, ooh, man, Michael did that. That is awesome. I'm motivated by that. I'm inspired by that. And now I have the courage to go do that just because you did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. So people are saying, that's great, Michael. So heads up for you. And Joe also says that she knows that I do a lot for other people. And she does agree with you. She does so much for other people. Okay. Don't know if that's twice the same thing, but if it's not, she will probably say it. So what's empowerment? What's empowerment for you? Besides the showing up and the showing out.
So empowerment for me is being vulnerable. And I think when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, that empowers yourself and it empowers others, because then people are not so scared to speak up and speak out, and they'll have that courage, they'll have that confidence, and when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, transparent, if you will, because there are people that do. They hide behind masks, they hide behind certain things, they hide behind all these things and put on a tough exterior, when really inside you're just a big teddy bear. It's just kind of one of those things that sometimes you really need to give yourself a hug and give the world a hug. And that's one of the things that I love about Miss Angela. And Angela, I do live with Angela. She's always giving everybody a hug. And that's not necessarily being vulnerable, but that's being empowered. And when you're able to open up to others and give freely to others. Hey, here's the thing. I heard this truly powerful lyric within a song, and I'm going to have to write it down. I'm going to completely chop this up, so I'm going to paraphrase this song, and it's not going to be exact. And it's one of those things that it's hard to receive when you've always been the one that's given.
Yes.
And it's a truly powerful lyric. And when I got to that part of the song, I was like, ooh, that hit different. And it's hard to receive when you're the one that's always giving. And the thing is that we're always giving. We're giving of ourselves, our knowledge, our experience, our life, our love, our examples, our struggles, our hardships, all these different things we're always giving. But it's one of those things that, how do you receive? And I think when you receive, that's empowering right there, because when you are able to receive, you are really able to give. But you must first be able to receive in order to give.
Yeah, I agree. So Angela is here. She says, love you all. And I'm kind of curious if you would like to join for a sec and, get into what you just said. I'm very curious. Angela, if you have a moment.
I do want to tell Terry, I always say vulnerability is the best place to grow.
I love that, man. And that's true, because once you live in your truth, once you're able to live in your truth, you will be able to progress forward much more clearly than you ever will if you don't live in your truth. And I think that when you're able to live in that truth and you're able to identify the truth, not necessarily accept it, but understand it, respect it, okay, and then come up with, once again, what are the ways to get around that truth, even if it's a negative truth, because so many people want to live within the positive truth that you need to understand and respect that negative truth as well too, and that's where you can modify, tweak, or change, continue taking action, get a different result, and that becomes the new truth. So the idea is that anything is possible, but you have to take action. And so many people are indecisive and they don't want to take action, but it takes courage to take action because people don't want to fail. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to do all these different negative things. But when you're vulnerable, when you're transparent, when you live in your truth, you will get a result when you take that action. And you've heard me say this before. When you get that result, you modify, tweak, change, continue taking action, get a different result, and you repeat that process. It's a never-ending journey. And I'm telling you right now that will expose you quicker than anything. Failure will expose you quicker than anything. It truly will. But you know what? I love that failure. Because without failure, there's no growth. Without failure, there's no opportunity. Without failure, there's no way that you can empower others. But you must fail first in order to succeed so that you can empower others.
Yeah, that's true. If you have experienced it, then you know what it's like to be at the bottom. And then you also know what it's like to be on the other side. And of course, we all know the effort that it takes, or at least from personal experience, at some point how much effort it takes. And then you're like, okay, what am I getting out of it? And it might be hard, and it might take a long time. I mean, it took me 3 years since the last surgery, since second surgery, before I was able to walk without crutches. I mean, 7 years in total, but 3 years ever since. So it's the third time I'm learning how to walk again, basically. So.
Yeah. I get it. I walk with a permanent limp. I've had hip surgery once, and I'm about ready to have it again probably here within the next few years. But we'll see what happens with that. But I walk with a permanent limp. And my son actually asked me the other day, he goes, "Dad, why do you walk with your feet out that way?" I was like, "Because it feels good. That's why." So, because I don't walk with my feet straight, I walk with my feet out because it allows me to move everything forward. It allows my hips to go forward, allows me to move a little bit freer. And then there's those moments where I'm completely hunched over. And it's like, oh my goodness, like I don't want to move and I'm just walking hunched over. So, oh my goodness. Yeah, I can relate to a surgery. I have had hip surgery once.
I've had about 30 surgeries.
Wow.
How many?
Around 30.
Wow. I know someone who will top you. That's not me, by the way, but a third, that's a lot. Wow.
Yeah.
Most people maybe get three.
Double head. What's that? What'd you say?
Yeah, he asked you to repeat yourself, Michael.
Oh, I've had around 30 surgeries, mostly legs, but I had a couple head, and I got my tonsil out, so that was all of them.
Yeah. Just 30. Yes. When my knee caved in last summer, one of the surgeons wanted to do a surgery, and I said, okay, that's fine that you want to do a surgery, but if you're going to do it, I want you to do both surgeries at the same time. I don't want you to do one. So basically, they had to take a piece out of the meniscus of my knee. And I wanted them to replace the ligament, not just patch it up, but the ACL in my opinion, needed to be replaced with a donor one because my tissue isn't the quality isn't as good as it should be. So he said, no, we're going to do one. So I said, okay, I'm going to get a second opinion. And the funny thing was that I ended up deciding I'm not going to do any surgery because of what was said. Hey, you go. and I guess that was a good thing. So I learned that I could do other things as well. So that's why I'm now walking with the brace, probably promoting the US flag, the stars and the stripes. Just because I love stars and stripes, but that's a whole different story. So Yuko says, hi, Terry, Lexy, Michael. I know not everyone can see it all the time, so that's why I'm saying it. But yeah, it's when he explained it, it made sense. It was like, okay, let's not do any more surgeries than needed. And he did agree with me. The second one, he said, if you had only done one, it would actually have deteriorated everything, and I would need to have knee replacement in like 2 or 3 years. And I was like, that's not worth it, you know. And then another 15 years later, and then later, and then later. So if I can avoid all those surgeries, I try. But if needed, I want them to be as efficient as possible, because they can't do a local anesthetic on me because I keep moving. That's very frustrating when your legs are not supposed to be working, and I can still lift them.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Anyway, anything else you want to touch upon, especially when it comes to dealing with? So you fell down, for instance, Terry, and well, I assume you had to learn how to walk again.
No, I mean there was it during that particular incident. Everything went numb for about 2 weeks. So I had no feeling on the left side of my body from like the lower back down to my leg for almost 2 weeks. So when I finally got my feeling back, yeah, I was walking different. I wouldn't say it was a matter of learning how to walk. It was just I was walking different, and I still deal with that. So it's one of those things where I still struggle to sit for long periods of time. That's the reason why I stand so much. And even standing hurts, but it's a whole lot better to stand than it is to sit down, in reference to like blood flow. So, so I can only imagine, like Michael, for example, some of the things that you have to do in order to make sure you increase blood flow to keep flexibility and stretching. And for me, I have to do the same thing. Even standing all day long, I still have to do things. So like when you see me doing, I look like I'm grimacing. It's because I'm stretching. I'm moving my legs. I'm trying to make sure that I'm moving from side to side. I'm doing all these different things to make sure that I maintain flexibility. Because if I don't, I'll be on the ground in the fetal position. It's one of those things to where I will literally not want to do it. And I have those days. Trust me when I tell you I have those days I do not want to move. I just want to lay down and I do not want to move. And I just put myself in the fetal position. I'm like, you know what? It's not happening today. And I just accept that. So,
and that's powerful too, that you can actually say, I'm embracing the fact that this is not going to work. I take care of myself. And no matter what other people are going to say, I'm just going to do that. So Yuko lets us know that she's so happy to see us. So that's good. And Mariela, she joined. I've been talking to her lately. Do you guys know Mariela?
Yeah, she's a movement maker, right?
Yeah, she is. She's new.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's good. Yeah. So
I have a lot.
Yeah.
I always prop my legs up to get the blood flow. Yeah. I barely ever walk. I'm always stretch. I always stretch and elevate my legs to make sure that everything is okay.
Can you do like a bouncy ball thing? I don't know like yoga ball, I think is what they're called. So I've actually found that a yoga ball is really good for me, so I can get really good stretches on this yoga ball. So I don't know, can you do a yoga ball?
Are you talking about stretching on it or laying on it?
It's like a stability ball.
It's a stability ball. It's a big. So I have a set.
Are you talking about sitting on it or like laying?
Everything? Laying on it, stretching on it, sitting on it, twisting on it, doing different things.
Laying on it, I think I'd be okay. If I was sat on it, I'd probably fall on my face because my balance is really bad.
Got it.
Yeah, that's why they invented stability balls to regain that balance. So what I always find the most challenging, going to lie down with your back arched over the ball, and it starts with sitting. And then you have to move in a way so that your bum is no longer on the ball and just the arch of your back. And that's okay until you need to walk back with your feet again and actually stand on top of the ball. And I can tell you how many times I ended up just sitting on the floor instead of
Oh,
on
I
the ball.
fell off that darn thing one time. I tried to do something fancy with it, and I went head over heels backwards off of that stupid ball, and I plowed my elbow. I hit my head on the wall over here,
Oh no.
and it was just kind of one of those things. I was like, oh my freaking goodness! Like I am definitely not trying that again. And it was just kind of one of those things. Now I have to be more careful on that ball. But I hit this 175-centimeter ball. And I'll do all different types of exercise. I'll lift weights on it. I'll do sit-ups on it. I'll stretch my back, my hip. And I actually find that I get better mobility, better movements on that ball than I do on a bench or a chair or even
True.
standing. So for me, having that little extra flexibility within the ball, that allows me to do different things differently.
Yeah, that's so true. It's far more natural compared to a bench. A bench is flat,
Yeah.
and a back is arched. It's
Mm-hmm.
as simple as that. So, but yeah, I know what you mean, and especially when it comes to looking ridiculous. And then we get back to the topic of courage. You know, trying to do like a bench press or something with dumbbells on a stability ball. That's basically challenging. I mean, especially when you have to get back up again from the whole thing. So yeah, I know what you mean. So here's a thing that recently happened. So normally the upper part of my back is kind of stiff, and it affects basically everything. So my shoulders are a little bit facing forward. Having walked with crutches for 7 years, of course, doesn't help. Especially doing the high-speed crutch hopping didn't help. Anyway, so last Friday I was dancing. You've seen the pictures, Terry. I just heard. And so I ended up in this gay bar. Well, the gay part is not essential in the story, but I did have a fun time because I went there with a gay friend. So I sat there on this bar stool high up, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to stand in the midst of the crowd for two reasons. First of all, I didn't want to be too close to the people because I still don't feel confident when it comes to Corona. Second, I don't feel confident when it comes to stability. And I was like, okay, just let me sit. So I've been dancing like crazy, and I had the most fun, and people could see it. They were laughing. They're always laughing when they see me dance because I'm going like crazy. I just love it. So when I walked back to the car, I was like, oh my God, I thought my physical therapist would be happy with what I've done because I've been moving around a lot. It was like, oh my God, everything is aching. You know that feeling probably.
Yeah.
But it's, I sometimes, especially when I've driven a long time, I might get out of the car. And the first thing I'll do is I'll literally do exercises to stretch my back, stretch my hips, the pelvis, everything, knees, basically to get the blood flowing again, and of course also the synovia in the joints. And yeah, it looks a little bit curious. Sometimes I do it, when I'm waiting in line and I'm waiting in front of the desk for people to pick something up. Then I'm just, okay, I'm going to do my exercise. So I'll stand on one foot and then with the other leg, there I go, 90 degrees, open up like this,
So you kind of touched on something
weird,
right there. You kind of touched on something right there, and that's having the courage to do difficult or hard things even when you don't want to. And it touches back on what I said earlier about judgment. What are your thoughts on doing those difficult things or those hard things, even though okay, there could be a consequence? So like if you're going to hurt yourself, having the courage to do something, even though it's going to hurt, but in the long run it's going to be better for you. How do you approach that?
The way I do it, that's going to end. The pain is going to end. Pushing through.
See, I think of it the same way. It's like building a muscle. So it's like, even though man, this is about to suck. I know this is going to suck. I don't, like today I did a 12-mile bike ride today. I hurt. Like I like my legs and everything tremendously hurts today because that's the reason why I'm in pain today, because I did a 12-mile bike ride earlier. And I know it was going to hurt. I was like, I know this is going to hurt, but I have to do this. It's one of those things that I have to have the courage to go through that pain, to go through that struggle, the hardship, no matter what, because I know on the other side of that, I'm going to be a little bit stronger. And the next time I do that, it's going to be easier. And the more that you do something, the more that you build up that muscle. So when I look at like hard things, difficult things, things that I don't necessarily want to do, I look at it as building a muscle. Yeah. And over time, you don't have to use as much of that muscle because it's easier. You've built the endurance. You've built the strength. You've built the muscle to do that hard thing, that challenging thing. And then it becomes muscle memory. And when you can get something into muscle memory, you no longer think about it. You just do it. It's an action versus a reaction.
Yeah, that's so true. And Mariela agrees with it. She says yes. So I have two answers to what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So there's part of me being so used to working out. So when I work out in the gym, I don't stop until I'm basically like this. You mm-hmm. know, that's when it feels good. So mm-hmm. I know it's going to hurt the next day. Usually I don't think about it, but when the next day when it hurts, it's like, oh yeah. And then I feel actually it's like those endorphins, they just pop out because I know that I did it, and I know mm-hmm. that it actually meant that I did good. So it's like a reward. So mm-hmm. that's one thing. As for the other, I go to the physical therapist twice a week. They realign my entire body, and one of the things they realign are my wrists. And when they realign my wrists and my shoulders, especially my wrists, I mean, there are so many little bones in the hand. I can tell you that hurts. It hurts immensely. And I forget it straight away. And that's the good thing. So when they start doing it again, it's like, oh, yeah, I remember there's pain. But I don't remember it until they actually do it. And then I know, okay, I need to relax. And that moment that everything is back in place again, it just feels so good that it all works well.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And so one of the questions that I believe it was Muhammad Ali that was asked one time, it was like, hey man, how many sit-ups can you do? And it was like, I don't know. I don't ever count. He goes, I only start counting when it hurts. And so it's like, I don't know how many I did up to that point that it hurt, but it's what hurts. Everything after what hurts is what really matters. So once again, that's where that endurance, that's when that muscle comes into play, because so many people train to time or to a number versus a standard. And when you can train to a standard versus time or a number or a repetition or a thing, what'll happen is that you will look for that and you will not have the courage to move beyond that because it's like, oh, I met that. That was my standard. But is it really that standard? I think having the courage to not have a number or a time limit or whatever the case may be and just train to a standard, what's that standard? Well, that standard's not always time or repetitions or what have you. So I think that once you switch that mindset, once you kind of tweak your thought process on certain things, you will understand that that courage can take you a whole lot further when you start trying to achieve things to a standard versus a time or number.
Oh, that's so true. When I was doing my stability exercises, what I told you about, standing on one foot, throwing the ball to the other person, mm-hmm. and I did it inside instead of outside, just on my socks. So there's a little, there's a sole, an inlay sole that's a little bit higher on underneath my heels, and I still wear high shoes. So the moment that it was all over and done with, I was like, what? I'm falling down, And it was like, that was weird. But, but it's okay. It's a different way of doing things. So Mariela totally agrees with us. Joe says, you've done a good job when that happens. She's probably talking about the muscle aches. I see applause. I see people twitching their biceps. Yuko says, I feel gain. Yeah, exactly. I feel gain when I feel pain. Mariela says, nice set. So I guess we're inspiring people. That's the job we were supposed to do.
I love it,
So
man.
also
Michael,
fine, says Yuko. Well, Yuko, you can always join for the last 5 minutes if you want to. But
Yuko always has valuable things to say. I love her show, especially when her and Tessa get together. Oh my goodness, man, it's magical when those two start conversating. But Yuko, I'm telling you right now, Yuko, she has so much wisdom, and I love that she always piques her inquisitive side of things. And I think that's what makes Yuko such a powerful speaker as well too. And even when she's speaking in Japanese, I have no idea what she's saying, but I'm like, man, this sounds amazing. This is great, kind of a
well, I
thing.
think she has English subtitles when she's
Uh-huh.
speaking in Japanese, and when she's speaking in English, she has Japanese subtitles.
Mm.
Yuko says, thank you, but I'm in my PJs. That's no
Mm.
excuse, Yuko. And by the way, this also applies to Mariela, by the way. So it's not just for Yuko.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, having said so, we are now online for or live for almost like an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you have anything to say to wrap it up? Are there any things we have forgotten about? We talked about the courage to explore what has been going on whenever anything has happened, face the consequences, as in, okay, what's going to happen, what has happened, and what's about to happen, and be open to the surprises, because when one door closes, usually another door opens.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being inventive and creative, and of course, we wouldn't be movement makers if we weren't creators. So Yuko says, thank you for the love. Mariela says, go Yuko. And thank you. Wow. Well, okay. So, oh my God. Joe says, nothing unusual for you, Lexy. It's normally 2 hours. Well, you know about that, Terry. So.
Oh yeah, we've had some long conversations. I know we've had up to 2 hour long conversations over on, and that's where I went first. I actually thought you were going to be on YouTube, so I was over on YouTube, like, man, where are you guys at? And then I
Yeah.
realized, I was like, oh my goodness, they're over here on Instagram. So that's when I had one set up over here, and then I had to set up another little. I mean, I've always got everything ready right here anyway. It was just a matter of me grabbing my other stand. So I got my phone on my other stand here, and and of course I got my other little setup right there. So I had all that set up ready to go.
Uh-huh.
And it was just kind of one of those things. But anyway, we're here. But I wanted to kind of tie something else into this as well too. But before I do, I just wanted to turn it over to Michael and see if Michael had any additional or final thoughts as well too. He's been kind of quiet, and I know Michael's full of wisdom and full of things as
Yes.
well too. But I just want to yield the mic very briefly if Michael had something he wanted to add.
Well, I think as far as courage goes, pushing through pushing through to what you want or what you aspire to, if you have the commitment, is important. You can't just give up. Or all my life, I've had a fear of failure.
Mm.
So I needed to get over that to get to what I really want. And that's important to know and think about. And I'm a big believer in continually checking in with yourself, like asking yourself questions, because you can lie to other people, but you can't lie to yourself. And if you do lie to yourself, it'll eventually come through that you're lying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to push through, do what you want to do what you strive to do, but always check in with yourself to know where you are in the process and what stages are you at, where your head's at, so that you can go forward with the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Know where your
Yes.
head's at.
I call that a pulse check.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a good way to put it.
I call that a pulse check. And when you do a pulse check, you're able to kind of see where you're at. So think about what you're checking when you're checking your pulse. You're checking on what are those elevated or unelevated levels or what have you. And when you can do a quick pulse check, you're able to kind of see exactly where you are, and you can adjust fire, so to speak, depending on what that pulse is. So I love that, man. It was a great share.
Thank you.
Yeah, so here, Joe says to you, Terry, wow, well equipped. And as for you, Michael, amazing. So nice to share your honesty with Michael. So, and then definitely Yuko. Oh, that's because she says so nice to share your honest feelings, Michael. And here, Joe also says very courageous, Michael. So there you go. So what did you want to share?
So for me, I always like tying things into leadership, because you know me, I've written several books about leadership, and I always believe that leadership is really the biggest thing. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And the thing is when I think of leadership, I think of the 3 C's of leadership, which is courage, candor, and commitment. Courage is what we've been talking about tonight. Have the ability to stand up, speak out, or take action in the face of adversity, struggle, hardship, or what have you. Candor. Here's where candor kind of fits into that. And I truly believe that candor is one of those things that gives you that ability to speak up, because if you cannot be candorous with yourself, in other words, speak up, you can't live within your truth. So that falls back into that whole truth conversation that I was talking about, and that's where candor fits in. So when you are able to have that candor during the face of adversity, you are able to be truthful with yourself and truthful with others. You have to say it like it is. You have to tell it like it is. You can't sugarcoat nothing, and that's also candor. And that takes courage to have that candor, to be able to speak up, to speak out, to be in your truth, to live in your truth, to tell it like it is. And then that's where that confidence comes into play. That commitment comes into play. So I like to say confidence and commitment. So that confidence really comes from the knowledge, the skills, and the experience. So when you have the confidence to be able to have the courage to do anything that you want to within this life, and we have that ability to do anything that we want to within this life, but that confidence comes from the knowledge, the skills, and the experience. You get knowledge through books, through courses, through seminars, through peers, through live streams, through YouTube videos, through all these different things, conversations, having those hard conversations, those tough conversations. And Lexy, you and I, we've had that conversation. I love how you dive deep into certain things and you touch on areas that other people are afraid to freaking go down that rabbit hole. But not you. You bring out the best in a conversation, even though sometimes it may seem a little prodding, so to speak, or a little bit too deep. I love it, because when you are able to go 7 layers deep, you're able to be more candorous, more open, more committed to the situation, to the conversation. And when you're able to have that confidence, you're able to have that commitment. And that's where it all kind of ties together, because people have always asked me, they're just like, Terry, why are you so motivated? Why are you so inspired? I'm not. Dude, there's time. Today I was curled up in the fetal position for almost 2 hours in a beanbag over there because I just wasn't having it. All right. And the thing is that's where that commitment comes into play. Now, okay, I had to do a little bit of self-care. I had to take a step back, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having that self-care, to having the courage to take care of yourself, because so many people are so worried about what other people say to where it's like, oh, you can't take no break. Well, you damn right I can. It's me. I have to live and die with this body, not you. Okay, so I am going to take a break. I have to have that self-care, because you know what? Self-care is not being selfish. And I'm not always motivated. I'm not always inspired, but I'm committed. And I'm committed to a lot of different things. Okay, and when I show up, I can show out. When I speak up, I can speak out. And the thing is that's where it all ties together. That courage, that candor, that confidence, that commitment. All of that ties into the number one thing that I believe is the most important thing within this world, and that's leadership. leadership, and we need more of it now than ever. And that's the power of things like movement makers. That's the power of things like change makers. That's the power of things like you, Lexy, you, Michael. Be an example, writing books, putting products and services out there, having tough conversations, and doing all of these things to motivate, inspire, encourage, and empower others. Because if they believe that it's possible for you, guess what? It's possible for them.
Yes, I love it. I love it as always. So I'm going to go back through the comments because so many people have been saying a lot of things.
A lot of
First of
emojis.
all,
I've been watching
yes,
them.
agree, Terry. I've learned to speak out because of Lexy. Mariela says, yep. Hugo says, Lexy is born with courage. Mariela says, yep again. And then in heart, and then fact. Hugo says, self-care is self-love. Mariela also says, thank you, God. Joe says, great speech, Terry. And Mariela is having fun at the moment. So there were two things I wanted to get into. No, three things. I'll start with the letter. Self-care is self-love. It's true what you say. And, I've been raised with, we have to, in the Netherlands, we work maximum 40 hours a week. We usually have one job and no more other jobs. So that's a whole different ball game compared to the US. Let me start with that. And here's the thing. I learned that down the road, I needed to take breaks. I needed to take breaks for my wrist. I needed to take breaks in order to get my back moving again. Whatever it was, I needed to take breaks. And sometimes I would close my eyes, sit behind the computer, and just, visualize, meditate. And oh my God, the things I got to hear from other team leaders who were on the same floor, because they didn't understand that was actually taking a break. And at some point, I would just walk off the floor. I would go and talk to a colleague for like 2 hours and then get back again. And then I would still do more than all the other people did. But I needed that break. And that's the hardest thing, that people don't always understand, that in order to do a lot, you sometimes need to take little breaks. And that is actually, it's like you said, self-care takes a lot of courage, and also a lot of insight, as in understanding what's going on. As for the 7 layers deep and me prodding, I try to see both sides. I try to understand what makes one thing do a certain thing. And a lot of people, they assume that I don't agree with them, because I do, and that I just want to, okay, let's take it. I wanted to say something that was not right. It's not to mess with their mind. It's simply because I want to understand it. Like you said, Terry, I want to see it from all angles. So I know, and I can correct myself when I'm wrong. And I can adjust, I can tweak, I can get to understand better. And it's also about being open to things. And it was funny today, there was a friend and she said, you actually agree with me. What's happened to you? And then she said, you agree with me again. So she was like, what? And as for the last thing, and I've been thinking a lot about this lately. You probably remember this, that we were talking, and I guess Bonnie was there too. And, I touch upon the very hard subjects, the ones, whether it has to do with addiction, whether it has to do with suicide, cutting yourself, everything basically that happens when you don't speak out. Because there's a reason why I say it is so important to speak out, and so that you don't numb yourself, you don't hurt yourself, and in the long run harm others. And when and I know that a lot of my colleagues, as in fellow therapists, they try to stay clearer from all those things. So today I was talking to someone, Mina Ye, and I told her what I'd done last night. So I basically told her, from, okay, I've been talking someone out of popping pills, to be done with it. And so she asked, is that normal? Is that your job? Well, actually, it's not my job. Yes, I'm a therapist. I know a lot of things because I've talked to a lot of people, because I try to understand what's going on. So I've spent evenings, hours and hours and hours on end with someone who used to be addicted, and who shared all these stories with me about what happened to other people. Because I think it's so immensely interesting. What drives a person to do certain things? What does it take for them, especially when it comes to courage, to change it so they can at least lead a normal life, whatever normal may be. And then I said, but people find me. It's not like that I'm looking for it. It for some reason it finds me, and it's like one of my clients said they sniff it out, and I believe that's true, because I'm not afraid of it. But sometimes it makes me question for and I believe that's good too. It's always good to question yourself if you're doing the right thing. But at some point I was like, okay, should I? And especially after the live with Evan Tinsman recently, I was like, yeah, I have never been an addict. So what do I know about it? Because he said people who've never been an addict, they have different views on things compared to people who have been an addict. But I've talked to so many that I do know that I don't have the normal view of the people who have never been an addict. And I was like, okay, yeah, my end goal, of course, is to facilitate and make the topics that people can discuss them, that that's okay to be open about it and not be ashamed, and know that there's support out there, and that I'm not going to say that I'm the expert on everything. I mean, I can't be, and that's not what I plan to be. But I do know a little bit of a lot of things, and especially, listening to the other people. And I was like, okay, so does it make sense what I'm doing? Yeah, it does make sense, because I know that if I wouldn't do it, that, people would get lost. But it's also, yeah, it was, at that moment was like, okay, am I foolish to do it? And I'm like, no, I need to continue on, because if I don't, who does? So Michael says that
he has to head out. Yeah, he got kicked out or something like that, and he said he has to go.
Yeah, exactly. So, but he loved the conversation. And yeah, Yuko was wondering where he went. Well, Michael usually has a terrible connection. So we've tried just about anything to go for like what's working best is, and we've tried
put some tin foil on his phone.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Hey, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. Believe me, my first television was a black and white, and I used to have an antenna with tinfoil on it. I get it.
Yeah. I know. I
had to get
exactly
up and walk up and turn the knob, and it was awesome.
Yes.
But no, I love it that you go 7 layers deep, and I know that you understand the concept of 7 layers deep.